brand new trading week right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Definitely the markets were on fire last week, even though we had that negative close on Friday. But here's what to look out for before you make that trade this week. Oil prices fell in Asian trade today, extending a decline. 0.71% down, and we're seeing weakness right there in the oil market. Brent crude, $66.12 a barrel, moving further away from that $70 level. WTI crude, that's a bigger drop. 0.86%, $63.33 a barrel. Are we going to revisit $50 again this week? Expectations have risen for a potential end to sanctions that have limited the supply of Russian oil to international markets after U.S. President Donald Trump, he said on Friday that he would meet Russian President Vladimir Putin August 15th in Alaska to negotiate its end to the war in Ukraine. Now, so I guess investors still looking out for that this week. Also here in Nigeria, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, they've commenced an electronic invoicing solution that's aimed at revolutionizing tax payments in the country. The e-invoicing system, also known as the merchant buyer model, is aimed at making tax compliance easier, faster, and more transparent for all categories of taxpayers. We have large taxpayers, which are companies with annual turnover of about 5 billion naira and more. They're expected to be the first to be onboarded on the platform in less than 2 weeks of the initiative going live. No fewer than 1,000 companies, representing 20% of over 5,000 eligible firms, have so far embraced the solution and commenced integration with FIRS MBS platform. So keep your eyes on that for now. Then to electricity. Now, we see the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, has expressed concern over the growing electricity debt owed by Ajaokuta Steel Company Limited and its host community in Kogi State. The regulator cautioned that the industrial complex risks disconnection from the national grid if the outstanding arrears are not settled. Despite being envisioned as a flagship project to spearhead Nigeria's industrialization, the Ajaokuta steel plant has remained largely dormant for decades while continuing to accumulate energy costs. Wow, talk about waste there. All right, we'll keep tracking all of that. But this week, on the data front, investors in Nigeria should be looking out for inflation data for July. We should have that sometime, maybe on Friday or maybe before that. Also, key earnings from listed companies. I guess investors watching out maybe for that insurance counter. After a 40% rise last week, Nigeria's telecommunications sector in 2025 has recorded significant milestones despite regulatory shifts and economic headwinds. Latest industry data showed sustained growth in mobile subscriptions, internet penetration, and data consumption alongside record broadband reach, and the market's valued at up to about $10.8 billion, now contributes over 14% to the nation's GDP. We also have key earnings from players in Nigeria's telco industry. Well, join us to unpack this today. We have Mr. Modupe Kadri, the Chief Financial Officer at MTN Nigeria, joining me right here in the studio. Good morning. Good to have you, sir.
Good morning. Nice having me. Thank you.
So I know you deal with the money at this point, and I remember, sometime 2024, 2023 was a different story, True. For Nigeria's telecom industry. But 2025 seems to be a good year, for business, and we're seeing the data there showing us that total active phone subscriptions, that's about 169 million phone lines, 78% tele-density, that's for January 2025. We're seeing internet subscribers connections, 142.16 million total, with 141.66 million mobile connections. So looking at this, it seems Nigerians are even spending more on data now. So that's good business, for you. How are you seeing all of that play out?
Okay, I think starting point is, late in 2023, early 2024, we're all crying in the industry needed to survive. And there was the need for the government to intervene in terms of appropriate pricing for the industry, which is what we talked about, the sustainability of the industry. So, of course, fast forward, that's what led to the price increases late Q1 of this year. And that's what has now given us the momentum to make the required investments to grow the industry. So you talked about the GDP stats. You talked about the role data is playing. I mean, data is actually a key enabler of the economy in terms of what we do. So, yeah, fast forward, we're much in a better place in terms of what we see, in terms of the trends. And I think the industry is much better for it.
It almost seems at this point, with what we're seeing play out with data consumption, the average consumer would choose to buy data than buy food.
I don't know. At this point. I don't know about that.
The demand for data is increasing exponentially.
So let's put it this way. So what does data give the customer? So network as a service is, you know, a platform where MNOs can actually roam within the NCC framework on MTN network. So the first person to do that on our network is T2, as they call themselves now, formerly 9Mobile. And it just gives the subscribers an opportunity to roam on MTN Nigeria network as T2. So the subscribers remain their subscribers. They provide the services and everything. The same way, if you have any issues when you're roaming abroad, you won't call Orange or Vodafone. You call whoever your service provider is. Same thing here. So that's what it is, network as a service. And in terms of the regulatory front, what it does, it allows the industry to be much more efficient in the utilization of scarce resources. So, and that's one of the things that would have enabled the growth of the industry if, for instance, you had infrastructure providers and various things which telcos initially had to do for themselves. So now, they could roam on a network. They don't have to be worried about the switches and all those sort of things. They roam on MTN network, and that's how it works.
All right. So, we've seen H1. It's good, for earnings and all of that. What are you seeing for the second half, in this second half of 2025?
Well, all things being equal, things remaining the way they are. And, most of our subscribers or viewers think the recovery actually started from Q3 of last year, even though at a slow rate. It's now, so Q3, Q4. So MTN returned to profitability per quarter, Q3 of 2024. And that's increasing Q4, now Q1, Q2. So the growth rate is there, and that's why we were bold enough to say that we expect that we should be coming out of our negative equity situation in this quarter.
All right, definitely a lot to look out for. What are you seeing for that MVNO front and the MNOs? We know that there's this relationship at this point. The MVNOs should be benefiting from the MNOs. Are we seeing any improvements there?
Yeah, we've signed on our first virtual operator, so it's same construct, shared resources driven by the regulatory front, and all MNOs are encouraged to make their networks available on a commercial basis that works for both parties. So to that extent, we've signed up our first MVNO. So they will be going live soon, just like we also have the T2 roaming on our network. So again, the point is that as MTN, we are here to help the industry survive. That was what we were pitching in those dark times. And it makes it much easier when you see other operators willing to come on and to provide quality services to the Nigerians, which we all deserve.
Right, and we see share price over 50% up year to date at this point. But thank you so much for unpacking this for us. Mr. Modupe Kadri is the Chief Financial Officer, MTN Nigeria. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
We see Nigeria's evolving food landscape is creating new opportunities and also challenges for businesses committed to delivering healthy, locally sourced meals, from navigating supply chain complexities and shifting consumer perceptions to weathering inflationary pressures and embracing digital transformation. We see the sector is at a critical juncture at this point. Join us to share her story. At this point, we have Bimpe Osayintui. She's the Managing Director, Dio's Delight. She's joined us right here in the studio. Great to have you. Good morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
So, healthy diets. We've had the MBS, they tracked that for a while, even though we've not really tracked it this year. We've seen the cost of a healthy diet starting from April 2024, started about 1,000 naira and 35. July 2024, 1,200 naira. That's the average price. Then September 2024, up again, 1,346. And, definitely we've been battling food inflation, for a while now. Then last week, I was trying to buy fruits. And the mama told me one apple costs 800 naira.
Yes.
That's the big one.
Yes.
Then if you're looking for the smaller ones,
500.
you know, so it seems being healthy is quite expensive, you know, at this point. How you seeing the industry so far?
So I think, like you said, inflation is one, so that has affected all foods beyond just healthy foods. But healthy food has always been slightly more expensive. I think if apple that you're buying at the market is that price, imagine when I need to combine it for a parfait with other things,
right.
The price is going to skyrocket. So there are other reasons why a finished product would easily be more expensive. But I think Nigerians have evolved to understanding that even though it's a bit more expensive, it's for their health. So I will push the boundary just a teeny bit because I know that it's going to be good for me and, you know.
So the consumer is ready to take on more?
Oh, yeah. So you see different price ranges and the consumers are absorbing it.
Right.
Yeah, and they see value in it.
I'm talking about the parfait now. We see it ranges at this point between 3,000 to maybe about 6,000 naira.
To 11,000.
I've seen 11K, and I'm like, I don't know what's in that one, but that's like the high-end parfait at this point. So
I think for parfait, it's what you put in it.
Okay.
So the 11,000 would have fruits that are maybe not your typical apples. So that comes to play. So the same way apple is expensive, imagine putting 4 or 5 other products in it. It's going to skyrocket the price, but as long as the consumer sees value in it, they'll buy it.
Right. And salads. That's another story.
Yes.
About 3,000, like 5,000 naira for a pack.
Same thing depends on what you put in. So you know the typical, like you would go, even if you go to a restaurant, there are different salads. There's a cup salad, there's Caesar salad. Some even use imported vegetables. But the point is, once you buy your vegetables in the market, yes, it's going to be cheaper and it's VAT exempt. Once you combine it into a plate, it becomes VATable. So obviously, if anybody selling salad is going to charge VAT, it's going to skyrocket the price. Over beyond whatever operating costs and profit they want to put into it. So it's going to be expensive. But the raw materials themselves have skyrocketed in price.
Right. So how do you navigate, you know, all of that to also be in business, you know, make profit and still, you know, get your customers to still buy, even though you have to keep, you know, raising those prices?
So I think it's creating value. And value could also be a perception. But the question is, whoever your consumers are, what do they see as value? And ensuring that your product is able to communicate that. And thank God we're in the era of social media, where you are given a gateway or a platform to express and authenticate whatever value that you're promoting or sharing. Because previously you would not have been able to share that value. People see this, make a decision, and they move away. But now with the social media, you can tell the story about your product, authenticate it, let people see the behind the scenes to say, we're not literally making this under a carpet somewhere. We actually have structures, there are costs involved. So you authenticate why you are pricing, why you are who you say you are, or providing what you say you are. And I think people tend to familiarize and have an emotional connection with you and the business or the product, as the case will be, yeah.
Right, and you know, some of these fruits are imported.
Yes.
Majority are imported, and you know, definitely that's a price pressure. That puts, you know, pressure on the naira. You know, at this point, talk to me about the intricacies there. What's really playing out in that fruit import business? So
I think the ones that are imported many times are a bit more trusted in terms of you believe those are the likely ones that are organic and chemical free. The ones here, maybe based on the issues we have in our supply chain from farmer to end consumer and all the logistic distribution issues, many of them are chemical induced as well to churn it out faster and probably reduce their loss on the long run. So I think there's more imported in the market, but there's a big opportunity for local. In terms of capacity, I think we can do it. Especially the farmers, they just need the right support. to get them to grow it, because it's demand. Now people are reading labels. So for Greek yogurts, people are asking, do you have a lactose-free option? What's your sugar content? What's your probiotic? What's the protein content? These are questions that are wondering, why are you looking for? But that's the era we're in. People are very discerning. So people are asking questions, and the same way people don't want chemically induced products. So I think the opportunity is there, but we still do a lot of importation like we do for many things. But there's no reason why we can't. We have farms. We have farmlands. So I think they just need to be equipped with funding and a right distribution channel for us to be able to get the
So you don't see any risk with the imported fruits?
It would always make our prices go up. That's the first thing.
No health risk?
No health risk. Like, the main health risk is if it's chemically induced. But if it's organic, no health risk. Yeah, if it's fruits, if it's something else, that's a different discussion. But if it's fruits and they're healthy, there's no health risk. As long as you know the source. Do you understand? You need to know the source. But funny enough, even though we don't know the source is coming from, but because it's imported, we assume
that's a
that
good
it's
source.
better. Exactly.
Right.
That's an assumption.
What about the GMO play there? Where does that come in when it comes to local sourcing?
So I think the other lady was saying it's not bad, people just need to declare it on the... So I think it's a debatable topic. I personally would say that too much of anything is not good. We all consume different things that we don't even know what is in it because it's not clearly defined or indicated. But too much of it would obviously have an effect. Anything GMO induced or chemically induced will have an effect if you take too much of it. But can you totally stay free from it? I doubt it. So it's a debatable discussion. We all eat things that are GMO. We just maybe don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, we don't know, but we eat it. Can we be more cautious about it? Yes. But is it going to kill us? No. If you're eating it regularly.
So we need to work on labeling.
Labeling, and I think that's what a lot of the regulatory people are fighting for, SON, NAFTA, and they're doing a good job. For even smaller businesses, they've upped the ante of the requirements, so you can't just come and just be doing it anywhere. The structure of where you're producing from needs to meet a certain standard. And indirectly, it helps we manufacturers because you now meet certain international standards versus just producing something from any facility.
All right, so looking at the business now, the healthy food business, somebody might be sitting there at home and wondering, I want to go into this business. I want to start a healthy food business. I feel like the profit will be incredible. What's it really like?
So it's interesting. The healthy food business, I would even say right now, everybody thinks it's an easy play because it's, especially for the category we play, which is the dairy category, we produce Greek yogurt at Deals Delight. It's a low barrier to entry because the materials you require are not much. But there's so much more that goes into it. There's storage, there's infrastructure, there's supply chain. There are a lot of things that go into that people don't consider. They just see it looks like everybody's doing this and it must be a win. It looks like that is what is booming. But you also realize that a lot of people go in fast and they jump out fast. Because when they go in and the why is because I just want to make money, but you haven't done your research, you haven't played out a way to reach your customers, or who are my customers, what exactly is going to make me different from, because now everybody's looking the same. So it's difficult to differentiate, but if you know your whys and what's driving you and you have a clear plan, there's no reason why you can't start a healthy business. But you need to have kind of carved out why you are in this healthy business. It's because it's booming, but can you manage the complexities that come with the materials, the storage, the transportation, the risks? You can have a day where you produce 600 liters and something happens and you have to discard the whole thing. Do you have the bandwidth to absorb such? Even distribution. how are you going to get it to, say you want to distribute to stores? So we do majorly in stores. We have over 200 stores we supply. When they don't pay you on time, what happens? Do you have enough capital to... So it all looks glamorous on the outside when social media, but there's a lot of back work that...
Do you think the banks like to lend to such business?
So I think the banks like to see what works. If you have a model that works and you have your books in a row and you see traction, they would lend to the business.
All right, so I guess they don't find it high risk that much.
No, it's not high risk. The challenge is a lot of the people who are currently in this category are SMEs or fast-growing SMEs. For that, the Greek yogurt, parfaits, and all of that, they're fast-growing SMEs. So the banks would obviously weigh their risk, and they want to see your audited statements. They want to see what you've done, where you are, what your traction has been over the last 3 years. Do we see a potential? So they want to see proof that this is a viable business and not a fluke, which they would typically do for other businesses, but they might be more, pay more attention because the risk is higher. That's the honest truth.
All right, and everybody's in it to make something.
To make something out of it,
At this point. Thank you so much for helping us unpack this. Ms. Bigbe of Sign 2, she's the Managing Director at Deals Delight. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me. It was good.
All right, on to the next one now. We see millions of Nigerians abroad. They send money home every day or every now and then, but each transaction serves two very different people, the sender in the diaspora and the receiver in Nigeria. Well, building a product that meets both sets of needs requires more than just moving funds. It demands deep understanding of cultural context, user expectations, and financial realities. That's for both sides. Now we're going to explore how some of these fintech businesses and multi-currency apps are feeding and closing most of these gaps we see right there with remittances. Join us now is Ron Onofoja, as the Director of Products at Juicy Way. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning. How's it going?
Fine. It's good to have you. So definitely we're seeing a lot of developments when it comes to remittances. We have people that are trying to send money back home. Some are trying to send money abroad at this point. Talk to me about what the sender really cares about, versus what the receiver expects.
Yeah, so the sender cares about two things, right? Say you have your mom in Lagos and, you work in the UK or in Canada. You want to make sure that the money you are sending to your mom is the money that your mom gets, right? You also want to make sure that you are not overcharged because you're being charged in foreign currency. Which are like the major concerns of the sender. And finally, you want to make sure that the moment you are making the payments, as much as possible, the receiver is getting this payment near real time. So primarily, these are the things that the sender cares about: near real time settlement, the cost of FX, and basically just security of the application. Meanwhile, for the receiver, who is the person in the receiving country, say Nigeria, for example, what matters the most is just making sure that you receive the money when you're meant to receive the money, and whatever the sender says that you're supposed to receive. So if the sender says, hey, I'm sending you $1,000, when you do the FX conversion, you're making sure that whatever rate you get is equivalent to $1,000. So that's primarily what these two parties care about.
Right, and looking at the currency front, we see the Naira there relatively stable since most parts of 2024 into 2025. How's that making business feel at this point? Because I know if you go back 2023, when we had the Naira moving up in very wild swings, what's it been like this period of having stability with the currency?
Yeah, excellent question. That's also good for business as well. The interesting thing about an industry like this is whether the Naira goes up or down or the Naira is stable. When it's stable, it creates certainty for your customers. So your customers, they have a kind of expectation. So they know that if they come, to try to transact today, they see very similar rates as what they saw yesterday, right? So it creates like consistency. And then whenever the currencies undulates, goes up and down, the FX, I mean, what you notice is customers basically would look at your rates and then they'll try to compare it with rates of maybe like competitors. And then they decide like, oh, this person has like the best rate in the market, and they also have like a reputation for like, T+0 settlement time, which means like same-day settlement, and they also have a reputation for very strong security. So whichever way it goes, stable FX, unstable FX, everything kind of works in our favor.
All right, so we've seen a couple of cryptocurrency, digital asset platforms also help when it comes to sending money abroad, because it costs way less than using the banks. But it's not that easy to use, because when you look at the address, maybe if you're trying to send a stable coin, if you check the address, it's not everybody will understand how to work around those addresses, in sending funds and all of that. So how do you manage with customers when it comes to the technology, because most of them are app-based? How do you make sure the app is easy to use for mommy in the village, or people that are not that tech savvy?
Yeah, so I think the secret there, not really a secret, more like an open secret, it's a concept called on-ramp and off-ramp. So in the US, and as well as in Nigeria and the countries where we operate, once you onboard on our platform, we're able to give you a USD bank account, like literally an account in your name, right? An account number, a bank, and so on and so forth. And with this information, you can basically, if you want to transact in stable coins, you can basically on-ramp it to stable coins, and you can send the stable coins through different means. So one means, for example, if clients within the application are sending money from one person in the app to another person in the app, you can basically do an internal transfer. So an internal transfer means I get your email address and then I send the money to your email address and you receive it. And when I get your email address and I impute your email address into the input field, it shows like your full name, your surname, right? So I'm sure that, oh, this person is who this person is. Now, in the case where maybe you have like, younger generations, like the Gen Zs, maybe, some kid in the US trying to send money to the village, and this kid has like crypto, right? The person in the village does not need to bother themselves, because we have like an off-ramp infrastructure. So what typically happens is the person enters, say you want to send 100 or 1,000 USDC. You select the currency you are sending from, which is USDC. You select the currency you are sending to, which is typically like maybe the Naira, right? And then you enter the amount. And the system, the off-ramp system or infrastructure does like an auto conversion, and whoever is in the village basically receives Naira. So they don't necessarily have to like dabble into crypto, because for like the older generation, understanding stable coins, although stable coins like has seen like very significant adoption in the US and with the US regulators in recent months, but there's a tiny like learning curve. And so it doesn't restrict them. We just create access, which is like, one of our strong values, like accessibilities. So how do people from different generations interact with cross-border payment? Because at the end of the day, stablecoins is a means to an end. Fiat is a means to an end. The thing that matters the most is one person has value somewhere and they're able to like pass that value to another place, right? Using different conduits. So that's like the second way, the on-ramp and the off-ramp system. The third way is primarily the user experience. Of crypto or stable coins. So primarily this means rather than trying to memorize or like write the address down, you can basically just click on like a copy button, copies the entire address. You see the chain. When you're sending the money, you put it into the sender's details. Just the way it copies, you paste it there, so you don't have to do any editing, right? And then we also allow customers to save stablecoin addresses as well with like name labels or whatever. So if you do it once and you save it as like your mom's stablecoin or whatever, you don't necessarily have to do that again for that particular person.
Yeah, because it's quite incredible, you know, when you're trying to send maybe any of these stable coins, you have different blockchains you might have to go through. Maybe it's Ethereum blockchain or Solana, or, you know, it depends on the blockchain at this one. Everyone's looking for the cheaper blockchain. And most of the time, we hear affordability, you know, when it comes to using stable coins. So I'm trying to imagine a time where there's full adoption now for stable coins and, you know, that's for cross-border payment. Would it still stay affordable? Would the blockchains be able to handle, you know, the kind of traffic that comes with full adoption?
Yeah, like already, like the blockchains work globally, and they handle like billions of dollars per annum, right? Probably even, billions, and it's growing rapidly, like extremely fast. You know, one of the companies that mints USDC is like the second most popular stablecoin regulated by the US. The company went public a couple of months ago, and their stock was like oversubscribed by close to 27x. The reason why is because of the rapid adoption, right? Stablecoins, you know how SWIFT payments, you know, came and revolutionized finance sometime in the 1900s. Stablecoins is like the future of finance, right? And what we're trying to do, aside from, you know, making it like easy for, you know, for individuals to transact, and it makes transaction, you know, like super fast. So for example, if you wanted to send like dollars to China, for example, the minimum you get, the best time you probably get is like a T+1. If you go to our traditional commercial banks, you can see like a T+2, T+3 sometimes, right? With stable coins, you can send stable coins to China right now, and in less than 2 seconds, the receiver gets it in China, and then it converts to like their local currency or whatever, right? That's how interesting stable coins is, and that's what makes stable coin, you know, the future of finance. So what we're doing is we're trying to also position like Nigeria and Africa in that play, right? Africa doesn't have to get left behind. Nigeria doesn't have to get left behind. So businesses, if you're a business, you import, you export, you know, and you have like customers who have like emergencies. These customers want to maybe pay for their goods, you know, real quick. You know, like stablecoin is something to explore, and that's one of the reasons why one of our products, we have API products where like banks and other fintechs can like integrate into their system. So you don't have to like go to, you know, square zero to start. We've gone like 0 to 1 for you. And what you basically do is like integrate our API, our technology into like your platform, banking platform, fintech platform, whatever the case is, and you can help your customers, whether businesses or individuals, to send money, to send USD today, and it gets the recipients in less than 5 seconds.
All right. So, Ron, I'm trying to imagine here, maybe Mr. Chike in Alaba that's trying to pay for goods in China. Does he trust stable coins enough to convert maybe 10 million or 50 million naira into stable coins to actually send out there? Do we have that trust when it comes to using this platform from, you know, some of those kind of producers and sellers here?
Yeah, so typically, like, that's a challenge that we face in this part of the world. You might not have the trust, but if you follow the news, if you follow like CNN, if you follow BBC, if you see what's happening in international markets, right, you know that this technology, stablecoin is a technology, you know that this technology is here to stay, right? Also, you want to also make sure that the processor or the platform you're using, you know, like they are regulated, they are standard, they have like, you know, all the compliance and regulatory requirements to, you know, house your money and to help you like process like remittance payments and whatnot. And I think for me, like, that's usually like enough. That's usually enough for any business or any individual to like transact. By the time you say you want to send money somewhere and we ask you, okay, what's the name of the sender? We do a KYC on the sender, right? We do a KYC on your company. And, you know, these KYC processes are pretty standard. Then, you know, it gives you an idea of like the quality of compliance and regulatory standard that we keep up with. Yeah,
All right,
that's
yeah,
pretty
so,
much
so
it.
much to unpack there. We're actually running out of time now, but thanks so much. We'll keep tracking to see how, the trust builds for, some of the buyers here in Nigeria trying to pay and make some of those cross-border payments. We'll see how it grows with stable coins at this point, because I'm sure it's not that easy. But thank you so much, Ron Northoja, as the Director of Product at Juicy Way. Thank you for coming on today.
All right, thank you. app.juicyway.com. Have a good day.
All right, now let's find out what's happening in the global space. At this point, we have John McQuam with the details. A brand new week, and it is ready to give us what's playing out. And I'm guessing Trump? No, maybe not.
Well, is it possible to have a global news segment without Trump?
Yeah, that'd be.
I wonder.
Impossible at this point.
Yes, it is. All right, Laddie, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the global news segment of Business Morning. Let's start with what to watch out for this week. If we could have that, what to watch out for this week. So there you have it. It's going to be a busy week, not very busy for major economies, of course, the U.S. So we start from on Monday. We're going to have inflation from Italy. And we know, of course, the tariff has a word or two to add to that. On Tuesday in the UK, we're going to have United Kingdom labour market report for the month of June. And yes, the US is in the news. The CPI, their inflation also, that's on Tuesday. Also on Tuesday, S&P Global Investment Manager Index for the month of August. And we know, of course, that will capture the sentiment of investment or investors expected for this month. On Wednesday, Germany inflation, our Berlin colleagues will be telling us about that. That will be on Wednesday. That is for July, as well as Spain. Spain inflation for the month of July also will be out on Wednesday. On Thursday, we go back to the UK for the second quarter GDP. That's what we're expecting. France inflation is also on Thursday. And then on Friday, I believe we do have some events on Friday, including, I think, a busy one for US also. That'll be on Friday. But that's what to watch out for this week. It's not a very busy week compared to what we'll normally have. But, I mean, we'll still have all those inflation numbers coming, especially from the Eurozone. The Eurozone seems to be going to be a bit busy this week. Now, look at other stories. Goldman Sachs is warning the United States that the consumers in the U.S. will bear the brunt of most of this tariff from the President, Donald Trump. That is going to be obvious in the consumer prices. And, we're expecting their CPI this week. On Wednesday, U.S. companies have so far taken the bulk of the hit from Trump's tariff, but the burden will increasingly be passed on to consumers. That's what Goldman Sachs has observed. And they say that as company hikes, economists, including John Hatzius, they say that in the U.S., there's an estimated 22% of tariff costs through June, but that was borne by U.S. companies. But the share will rise to 67%, and once it gets that high, then it will be passed to consumers. So that's what Goldman Sachs is saying for this week in the United States. NVIDIA is in the news. NVIDIA Corp and Advanced Micro Devices Incorporation, they have agreed to pay 15% of their revenues from Chinese AI chip sales to the United States government, and that's in a deal to secure export licenses, an unusual arrangement that may unnerve both U.S. companies and Beijing. So President Trump getting some money there. NVIDIA plans to share 15% of the revenue from sales of its H20 AI accelerator in China. And then AMD will deliver the same share of 15% from the M1308 revenues to the United States. Meanwhile, Chinese state-linked media has raised concerns, security concerns about NVIDIA's H20 artificial intelligence chips, citing security risks and environmental issues. This follows a July 31 meeting in China. So NVIDIA is not having it easy at this time. And then iron ore, the price of iron ore gained after Chinese consultancy said several steel mills had been told by authorities that they will need to temporarily halt production later this month because of air pollution concerns. So that's another air pollution issue, adding to the issue of tariff in China. And Ladi, this is not the first time we're hearing of air pollution in China.
Right.
And I guess it's the price of industrialization. With so much activity, industrial activity going on, these are some of the consequences.
Yeah, the environment
that the people,
pays the price.
Yeah, have to face. Yeah, so even though we don't have a lot of that in Nigeria, but remember in Rivers State, because of the oil and activity around the oil and gas, also there was a time they had such a problem.
Oh yes.
In Rivers State. So
especially with illegal mining, you know, with
especially because it's not controlled.
See how that impacts the environment. But definitely, we hope at some point we can all value our resources, especially in Africa, and we're able to actually use that to build our economies, you know, going forward.
That's what we hope for.
Thank you so much, Amy, for those details there on what's playing out in the global space. So definitely it's still very early this week, but definitely we know markets are going to be moving in what's playing out right there in the global space and right here for the domestic market. Thanks so much for watching Business Morning today. I'm Ladi Williams from me and the team right here at Channels HQ. It's bye for now.